Education has always been very, very, very important for me. If you're in a certain level, you need to have all the answers. And I'm tough. I'm not easy. I demand excellence. If you want your employees to be productive, they need to be able to have lower stress. And how do you get these stress levels down? By creating a safe environment for them.
Be confident, be articulate, know your audience, prepare.
Because when you have a great team, you can do amazing things.
So it's good to kind of keep that circle going where you kind of mentor people, but then they become leaders themselves.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to The Pulse, your home for all things management and finance. I'm your host, Alex Ponce. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Dr. Maribel Diz, a distinguished leader in the world of human resources. Dr. Diz is a senior vice president at Visa and the head of people for Latin America and the Caribbean region. With over 27 years at Visa, she has played a pivotal role in shaping human resource strategies and fostering an inclusive workplace culture. Dr. Diz combines her extensive corporate experience with a strong academic background, holding a doctorate in business administration. She is a thought leader in areas like leadership development and talent strategy. Let's dive into a conversation about the evolving landscape of human resources and the power of strategic leadership. Welcome, Dr. Diz. How are you?
Oh, good. So happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
So happy. You are a very special guest to us, and we are on our last episode of the fall term. So we are, as they say, saving the best for last.
Wow. Thank you.
And I'm glad that you were able to make the time in your very, very busy schedule when you're not jetting around the world, saving lives, as Captain Human Resources. I am so happy that you're here with us. So why don't we start with where you're at right now? You're a senior vice president at Visa, and you are the head of people. I love that title, by the way, head of people. It's very straight to the point. Tell me about that role and what that encompasses.
Yeah, human resources was just so transactional. It's almost like assets, although that employees are our most important assets, that's for sure. But we're in the business of people. We're not in the business of shifting resources from one bucket to another. So where I'm at right now, I'm at my dream job. Honestly, this is a lot of fun for me. I have an amazing boss, which is the regional president, who I admire and consider a friend. I have amazing leaders that I look up to. The chief people officer is totally amazing. Love her with all my heart. And I have really great bosses. So right now, at this moment, I'm in my dream job. I'm able to do what I want in the people realm. All of my crazy ideas get implemented and listened to. I have an amazing team that I lean on tremendously, that I empower, that I acknowledge, that I give amazing credit to, where I'm able to just push forth my doctoral degree to a whole new level and developing really cool, neat things. Again, using the doctoral degree framework and what I learned. I'm in a good space. So going back to your question, what am I up to these days? Well, I'm leading people. I'm changing lives. I am excited when I get up in the morning to come into work, and I do a lot of cool things. So that sums it up, I guess.
That is a great job title. I get to do what I want and I'm changing lives. I mean, what better job is there? You've been at this job for a long time, 27 years. I mean, this is a very old school way of thinking of companies. Most people nowadays, they'll work somewhere for a year or two, and then they'll bounce to the next place, and they're playing career ping pong. And you're almost taking, what used to be called the company man policy, and I guess now it's company person policy, where you're making it work for an extended period of time, and as a result, both the company and the person are developing. Tell me how you started there, because I know it's an interesting story with a newspaper.
Yes, actually. But going back a little bit, yeah, I've been with the company it's going to be 28 years in April, but it hasn't been the same company, and it certainly hasn't been the same job. Truth be told, when I started, I thought, I'm just going to be here for about 3 years until they pay for my education, because this company has amazing tuition reimbursement. I thought, okay, then I'm going to bail. But I didn't, because just so many interesting things kept on popping up, and kept on being tapped in the shoulder for all these cool projects. And before you know it, it was okay, 6 years, and then 9, and then 15, and then 20. And now I still can't believe I've been with this company for so long, but so far it's been an enjoyable, amazing ride. So when I started, I had a great job before Visa. I was the head of HR for a hospitality firm, DoubleTree.
Okay. Okay.
And then I thought, wow, and I did not have an undergraduate degree. It was, life took over and life happens. And I graduated from high school. I started going to college, and then I had to take a step back to help my parents' business that was waffling at the time. So I was asked to go back to work, and I did. And then I thought, well, what am I doing? Years have gone by. I still don't have my degree. It's important. I want it. Education has always been very, very, very important for me.
Absolutely.
So you know what? I'm going to take a step back in my career. I know that I'm leading HR for this hotel. I'm going to take a lesser role so that I could go to school and study, but I need to find a company that offers tuition reimbursement. And I started literally looking at ads in the newspaper and circling them with a red pen. Like, these are the companies that I want to target. I answered the blind ad for an HR assistant because I thought, well, I know I'm a manager now, but if I were to take a step back, I think I could do this with my eyes closed. Turns out the hospitality industry doesn't pay that great. Turns out that I was making more money as an HR assistant than I was as a manager. And I even had to work weekends every other month as manager on duty for the whole entire property. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm just going to go. So then I start this amazing company. We were 69 employees then.
Okay.
And I didn't even know that Visa had an office in Miami. It was really hush hush. It was the Latin American and Caribbean region. Our footprint was not in the US, so we just wanted to keep a really low profile.
Okay.
And then I started, and the HR assistant job lasted probably 3 months. They started piling on stuff because I had the capability to do more.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I got pregnant.
Oh.
And I had to put my education on hold, and my first baby daughter is a Visa baby. I have 2 children, by the way. I have a son as well.
A Visa baby. I like that.
2 Visa babies, and they're loyal to the brand through and through. I mean, they will tell their friends to pay with Visa if they pull out another card brand. They're so committed. So
That's
then,
great.
when she was old enough, I would say 1.5, I said, forget it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to school.
Mhm.
And Visa has paid for my education throughout this whole time. My undergrad, my graduate degree, and then finally my doctoral degree. So
No, that's an amazing start. What was Visa up to exactly? Because, when people think of Visa, they think Visa, the credit card. They're everywhere. But a lot of people don't understand that different regions have different leadership structures in order to control that region. And then you have a master leadership above it all in order to control the different pieces on this chessboard. So what was at the time Visa concerned with entering the Latin American market, or were they already established, but they were just on a smaller scale?
it was a different business model. As a matter of fact, it was an association
Okay.
when I started, and each region was standalone, had its own board of directors.
Interesting.
And we were taking, I don't want to say taking over LAC, but we were winning a lot of ground. And again, the brand and what it stands for just opened up a lot of doors. But being here for so long, I lived through numerous changes in regional presidents, changes in dismantling the association business model to merging all of the Visa regions, creating Visa Inc. And
Right.
then right after going public. So I lived through the due diligence that is required in order to take a company to an IPO, which was quite fascinating. And that's where I started to get my grades. The good news is that I gained a lot of experience in that. I was always tapped in the shoulder to be part of these task forces to represent the region. And this region was always very advanced and very scrappy because of the nature of our region. So what we created was so great that it was pushed out globally. And still today, things that I create here or that the team creates here is picked up by global.
Well, I could tell right now this is an amazing interview because usually when I go into these interviews, I kind of have a flow of the conversation and I have the questions kind of in a certain order. And when I'm halfway through the conversation, I'm like, I got to throw these questions away because I have 100 other questions coming. I know
Right.
we're going into the right direction here. You're going through all these transitions from where you started as an assistant to where you are now. And I have to assume that along the way, you're, of course, advancing not only in your education, but also in your career as far as the roles you're taking. And I can't even say it's a quick climb because almost 28 years is, by any definition, a very, very, very long climb. So as you've been going up, what changes have you seen? Not necessarily industry trends so much as trends within a company such as yours that have led to where you're at now. And I say that because, for example, there are a lot of case studies from the 70s when competitors to Visa, for example, were trying to do different things and explore different services to go into, and they failed miserably. And Visa has been almost a success story, time and time again. So from a human resources point of view, what challenges has that presented for you? From, oh, we're this as a partnership, all of a sudden now we're going to be consolidating things. Well, that kind of puts you in a predicament because the people is the first thing that's affected, when these ideas come down the pike. So how did you approach these things? Let me put it that way. How did you approach these issues as they were happening?
Well, going back to your initial question, which is you've been with a company and you started as an assistant and now years later you're an SVP. Well, it's been quite a journey, and it always makes me smile when someone comes up to me at an event that are just starting in their career and they say, I want to talk to you because I want your job. And I kind of look at them and say, do you have any idea what it has taken for me to get here? I mean, I just wasn't placed here fresh out of college. I mean, there was a journey that needed to take place in order for me to learn, in order for me to embrace complexity, how to live with tough decisions, how to navigate really highly difficult conversations, how to make sure that at the end of the day, it's going to be as much of a win-win for all parties included. That just doesn't happen because you graduate school and you have all the theoretical. I mean, the practical is just as important. And another thing that I wanted to throw out there is that up until I got to the VP level, all the roles before, as I was climbing the corporate ladder, so to speak, other people saw the potential in me before I did. So I was literally tapped because of my work ethic, because of the way that I treated people with respect, the way that I showed up, my assertiveness, all of these things that make me who I am today as a professional, they saw before I did. For every job that I was placed or offered, I never thought I was ready. I was like, no, what? This is insane. What? I can't do that job. I'm just not ready. And they literally pushed me into those roles. So I had really great bosses that saw it in me and took a chance and took a risk in me. And then when I was in that role, I had a commitment towards them. I don't want to disappoint. So I'm going to work twice as hard. I'm going to work twice as long. And I'm going to make sure that I live up to their expectations. And that helped me tremendously because, yeah, you kind of look back and you're like, wow, that was really tough. But if you're not faced with toughness, if you're not faced with those situations where you hit up against a wall and you kind of have to recalibrate and see how it is that I'm going to change this or get better on, be open to what other people are telling you and not be stubborn and think, well, my way is the best way. I mean, if I didn't live through that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And now I see people sweating the small stuff. I see people suffering, and I'm sitting back and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a simple solution to that. But you need to pay it forward. I need to help coach these individuals to get to where they need to go. Because if I go in there with a silver bullet and tell them, no, this is how you do it, it's so simple, then I've robbed them of their opportunity to learn, to suffer, to get the badges, right? To
Of course.
really shine later on. And I'm tough. I'm not easy. I demand excellence. And if you want to work in this team, get ready, because it's not going to be easy. And that's the way I treat my leaders and the expectation I have of them. It's like, we're not playing here. We're here to win, and we're here to do good. And I think that has helped shape a lot. I'm not taking credit for how wonderful the company is doing or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but there are certain things that I have taken on to make sure that we surround ourselves with excellence.
Well, you're like the reluctant hero. You don't want to be tapped, but if you are, you're going to make it work one way or the other. But that reflects a lot on leadership. There are some people that they kind of want to keep their subordinates or direct reports down, and they want to stay in their position. And then there are other people that are basically grooming the next generation to take over, which inevitably helps them open up a spot, or rather take advantage when a spot opens up above, in order for them to take it. You're doing wonderful work in that sense, because you're not only expecting that of the leadership, but you're also modeling that for the subordinates. And I know with organizational behavior, that's one of the first things they say, that leadership starts with yourself and how you treat not only the people above you, but the people below and the people to your left and right. So you're talking about this in that sense. And I'm just going to talk for 1 second about mental health, because I know that that's an issue that comes up a lot, and I've gotten some questions on that. And a lot of companies have it. They have the benefits, but they're not actually employed. And I always tell people, avail yourself of the benefits that a company offers you, because they are looking out for you most of the time, for whatever their motivation, but they're looking out for you. And so how do you feel as far as workers treating each other regarding issues of mental health and benefits, them being there for each other? How do you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you personally how I run my shop, if you will. I do have non-negotiables.
Okay.
There are two, not a lot, because you want people to remember them, because they're non-negotiable. Number one is absolutely no throwing anyone under the bus.
Okay.
Don't you dare come to me and throw a colleague under the bus. That's not cool.
Of course.
We're here to collaborate. We're here to help each other. We're here to step in and lead when someone's down, because we're one Visa. It's not the total rewards function. It's not the talent acquisition function. It's not the people business partner function. We're one. We're all in this together. And then the other non-negotiable is, don't you dare take credit for someone else's work. The contrary, you shine the light on that person.
Right.
And you talk about that person when that person's not in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we help each other. And that builds a community of trust. And when there's trust, there's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not constantly looking over your shoulder to see who's going to stab you in the back or who's going to take credit for your work. I mean, that's not good behavior. So those are my two non-negotiable. Now, I've been creating a lot of work. This is one of the cool things about being able to create and putting forth additional knowledge into play. Just yesterday, I launched a Leading with Humanity masterclass. We have a Visa University within Visa, and they have amazing instructional designers. So I came up with this idea, and it started with leading with the heart, because I feel that there's a need for that. And this came out of my dissertation. Whereas, what are these new generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs, looking for in a leader? And I came up with a whole bunch of findings, which was fascinating, and I still use today. So I'm evolving that work to how do I implement that in this leadership environment? So I started with leading with the heart, and that didn't resonate with a lot of different functions, especially those highly analytical ones. Okay. They're like, the heart, just bottom line. What are we gonna, what's our return on investment? Let's talk numbers here. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe that's not gonna work, because it may be thought of as too soft and it's not going, I won't be able to permeate it across a broader group of people.
Right,
Then I thought,
right.
well, I'm going to call it something else. I'm going to call it leading with empathy. And empathy was not so great either because people get empathy confused with sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to get stuck in that empathy space. I wanted to move to the compassion space, which
Okay.
the difference between empathy and compassion. Compassion is, what can I do to help you?
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is like, ooh, I feel for you.
Right.
Yeah, and that's it. Well, no, as a leader, I need to remove roadblocks from your path in order for you to be successful. I need to be that servant leader that if I help you be successful, by default, I'm going to be successful as well.
Right.
So, how do we get into that compassion space? So, it's really neat. I had my first one yesterday. It was about 35 to 40 participants. And
Oh.
these are leaders that are, this was the last module for them to finish the leadership course in a region within Visa. And I think it went really well. It resonated because I not only talk about the soft stuff, I ground it in research.
Mm-hmm.
I ground it in studies that scholars have done for many, many years. I mean, this leading with humanity concept started back in the 1950s, but now is when it's coming to life because now is when we need it the most because of the new generations that are coming into the workforce, the millennials and the Gen Zs, which I would say in a couple of years they're going to make up more than 50% of the
Yes.
workforce. So we need to adapt to them. No longer it's like, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get used to my leadership style because I've been around for so long and I know what I'm talking about. Forget it. That's out the window. It's like, well, how do we not only attract them, but how do we retain them and continue to keep them motivated? And this is a really critical piece in that. And going back to your wellness comment, wellness has taken center stage when COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was always there in the backdrop, but now it's right front and center because it's necessary, because it's required, because we're also in a different time. We're in
Right.
the digital era, right? Forget about wellness when we were in the industrial age, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it all started. That's when the work week started. That's when the hours a week started punching in, punching out. It was more of a command and control type of leadership. Forget about wellness. You're coming to work whether you want to or not. It is what it is. We're working the factory. We need to get these products out. And if you
Right.
don't come, you're fired. You can't do that today. And now with the digital era where it's all very flat, it's all very fast. I mean, do people need to work 5 days a week? Do they need to come into a site to do their job effectively? Not anymore. And the pandemic showed us that. So the whole world needed to shift from presential to
Mm-hmm.
remote, and everybody was doing it. Now we're in this hybrid world because not everyone is remote. So we can't do that. We need to spend time with each other. And if you want to develop as a leader, you
Mm-hmm.
need to surround yourself with people that have done it before for you to be able to mimic them, for you to see them in action. You can't do that sitting isolated in a house or an apartment. You need
Right.
to be among people. And I always say, well, if you want a job, work remote. You do you. If you want a career,
Mm-hmm.
you need to come in. You need to come into the office because that's how you learn. That's how adults learn by working things collectively and together. And that is something that AI can never replicate. That humanistic touch. We're social beings by default, some more than others, then you have your introverts and extroverts and all that.
Right.
But we need people to coexist, right? That goes back to our reptilian brain. So yeah, and wellness is something that we need to continue to look at, to foster, to include, and to be front of mind.
Empathy, it really is the appropriate word. It just has these odd stigmas attached to it, which makes it so hard to relay that without having to modify it somehow to make it palatable. What would you say to somebody that works in a Excel spreadsheet type world where all they're looking at are numbers and they are saying, well, the only thing I need to know is how to do these formulas. I can take care of the rest myself. What do you say to someone like that? Because last time I checked, everyone needs leadership training. Everyone needs, empathy training, compassion training, their EQ. They have to develop these skills. And they usually run into problems when they start working into teams. So what do you say to that scenario where you have someone that is very, I don't want to say analytical. There are plenty of analytical people that have high EQ. But what do you say to that person that just wants to be analytical?
That's fine. They're going to be stuck. That's okay. Look, there's a place for everyone. And if the person wants to work, if the individual makes a conscious decision to work on spreadsheets and be an individual contributor, perfect. That's fine. We need pillars. We need steady eddies. We need folks to do the heavy lift. Then don't come back and say, I'm in this dead end job, or I'm bored. I'm sick of the monotony. I want to continue to grow in my career. Okay, well, then there's some things that you need to do in order to do that. For instance, you're going to have to work with people. You're going to have to lead people. You're going to want to have people follow you because there's no sense of you being a leader if no one's following you.
Right.
And there have been cases like that you have leaders that just go, visionaries. They see the big picture and they're like sprinting towards a project, towards a completion, towards something, but then they look behind them and there's no one behind them. Why? Because they're far back in the distance, because they don't have that vision. No one brought them along, or worse, they've left a whole bunch of dead bodies in their wake. And then that just disqualified them as a leader. You're not a leader. That's
you
your
you see that more
operandi.
often. Yeah, you see that more often.
I don't. And you know why? Because I call it out. If I start to see that behavior, I call it out immediately. I'm like, hey, did you realize? And sometimes, more times than not, rather, the person is unaware. They're so self-absorbed in winning and getting and that they don't even know. But when you, and I love this moment of total realization where their eyes just kind of pop out of their head and then they feel bad because it was not their intention to do that. But going back to those highly analytical people, the research, and this is how I work with them on this, is I give them facts, I give them metrics, I give them research. I mean, you want productivity? Well, guess what? If you want your employees to be productive, they need to be able to have lower stress. And how do you get these stress levels down? By creating a safe environment for them. And what is that? Leading with humanity. You know what? If you have a compassionate culture in your organization, it leads to less absenteeism and it leads to lower emotional exhaustion. And what happens when you have less absenteeism and people that are ready to go? Your productivity shoots up. 61 employees report that they're more likely to innovate if they're in a safe environment. Otherwise, if they're scared, they're not going to want to take a risk. They're not going to want to innovate, and you're done. And 87% of workers reported that mutual empathy between them and their leaders increased their efficiency. You know why? Because they want to work blood, sweat, and tears for a leader that they respect and respects them too. So yeah, there's a lot of data out there. But let me double click on something else because I feel that I only told half the story when it comes to the definitions of the difference between compassion and sympathy. As a matter of fact, I used a Harvard Business Review article that was launched in December 2021. And it's called Connect with Empathy, but Lead with Compassion. And this is my favorite visual of how to explain the differences. So imagine that you have a quadrant and at the very, like an X and a Y axis. And at the very corner, there you have pity.
Okay.
Pity. And pity is, I feel sorry for you. And then a little bit more advanced, you have sympathy. And sympathy is, I feel for you. for you. Then you have empathy, which is I feel with you. I'm with you in this pain. I'm just feeling it. But then you have compassion that says, I am here to help you. So see how we go from feeling sorry for someone to actually helping them? It's a progression, right? So if you have time, look it up. It's Connect with Empathy, but Lead with Compassion, Harvard Business Review, December 2021 by Afton Carter and Huggard. It's a paper actually. It's 3 authors that put it together, and they loads and loads and loads of research to come up with these differentiators, because people get stuck in that empathy and sympathy, and they just get stuck there. But we need to push people into the compassion space so that we can actually be productive. So I can stop me because I geek out and
No, I'm glad that Harvard had a place in your heart when it came to this article. So good to see that we know a thing or two, and we're sharing it with the world. It's one of these conversations that it's kind of hard to have with people that don't fully understand what you're going through, and the way you're setting the table, as they say, is a very holistic approach. And it makes perfect sense. If you improve the working conditions, you don't need as many benefits because you're not dealing with as many problems, which is the ideal scenario. And yet, even if there are, you've got those covered. I know way too many companies that they'll say, oh yeah, we'll take care of your problems. Here's a link. Click on it and they'll take care of the rest. And it's some sort of association or partnership they did with a third party. It doesn't do anything for anybody. And it almost disconnects the employee from the company. In your case, your approach seems to build family. It seems to bond people together in a closer way. Going to teams, because I know that that's something that a lot of our viewers are interested in. What is a typical request that you would receive regarding team makeup, and what are the characters that you're thinking about when you're helping to put these together? Because I have to assume that you probably get a million calls. Hey, we need someone in this capacity, and it's usually 1 or 2. But what happens when the company says, we need to build an entire team? How would you approach that as an HR professional? Because, unless you've been in there as long as you have, it's a very daunting challenge.
There's so many different ways of looking at that. For instance, what does this team want to accomplish? What's the end game? And I tell my folks, don't be an order taker. You really need to understand what's behind it. What's the strategy? What's the end game? What are they going to go after? What skill set is required? What is the different thresholds that they need to meet, and what turnaround time are they faced up against? Because a team that needs to get through a sprint for results may look very different than a team that you're going to put together to launch a product that's going to take 5 years to create. I'm just making this up. So you need to know a little bit in that meeting, like, well, what is it that we're trying to do here? Because if you're an order taker, you're just going to be like, okay, these are the levels, and this is what you need, and off you go, and then you've just did a huge disservice because you're not getting into the deepness of what is it that you need in order to be successful. So it depends. It depends. I also like for the business to have skin in the game. Like, yeah, we'll procure talent for you, and we'll make sure that we assess them and ensure that there's a fit, not just skills and knowledge, but cultural fit. And are they going to be amenable? Are they going to be available? What is their track record? What skills can we apply to this and that and the other thing? But the business needs to have skin in the game. Okay, so how are you going to ensure this person's success? It's not, how are we going to meet our targets? No, how are you going to ensure this person's success? And when you hire someone or bring someone in, you need to look at them 2 positions out. Like, do they have the potential and capability to do different things? Or what is it that they're going to learn in this project or activity that can be leveraged in other parts of the organization as well? It's not just looking at it in the surface. We try to go as deep as we possibly can.
I ask because there almost seems to be 2 schools of thought when it comes to hiring people. One is get the best person for the job, and they'll use some sort of arbitrary metric in order to determine that. whether they went to a certain school or they got a certain GPA or they've achieved a certain sales number, and if they've done this in the past, then they've met the requirements. And then it's a matter of figuring out who did the most, who got the highest GPA, who sold the most. And then there's the other school of thought in line with what you're saying, which is go and look beyond these arbitrary factors, see how they're going to fit long term as well. Because oftentimes that's what you need to worry about. It's not very few times is it a short, sprint. It's usually 2, 3, 4 years out how you're looking at it. What have been the greatest challenges that you've been seeing with applicants that are starting their career? Because this is well in line with a lot of our viewers. We have two demographics. We have those that are starting their career and they're getting their first degrees, and then they're going to go out into the workforce. And then you have the ones that have already worked quite some time and they are pivoting somehow. Maybe they're getting the degree in order to get that promotion, or they want to go into a different field. What do you say to the ones in the initial category, that the ones that are starting? You'll have 20 people apply to you. What is the common problem that you tend to see with all of them, or with most?
I wouldn't say problem, but one thing that I look for is grit.
Duckworth would love you.
You know what grit represents? It represents that you're going to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to come back and say, oh, that's not under my job description. You're going to be like, what is it? Coach, put me in. What is it that you need me to do to get this done? Someone that has experienced hardship and has experienced making ends meet, that has experience figuring things out on their own, they're going to make things happen in the best possible way. They're going to sit back, and no is not an option for them. They're going to figure it out. And that's one thing that you either have or you don't. So if you don't have grit, find it.
Find it?
Yeah.
Hone it. Go hunting for it.
Go and experience some hardship, because that's going to define character. That's going to, if you want to walk in someone else's shoes, that's going to give it to you. And I think that's what most companies should hire for, right? People that are hungry, people that have that fire in the belly, that they're going to want to do good, and they're going to want to grow, and they're going to want to excel. And by default, the company is going to harness that. But that's very personal. That's something that I look for, and that I kind of, but there's a different way of saying grit. And I don't know if you've listened to Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle.
Yes.
Isn't that powerful? When you hire people whose purpose is similar to your own, you're going for the same exact thing. So when I tell folks, if you're going to apply for a company, do your research. Make sure that that company's purpose aligns to your purpose, because chances are the leaders in that company, they've already aligned with the purpose. So it's just an extension of the company purpose, the way that you're being led. So, if you find that the company doesn't align, just keep looking. There's so many other companies out there, and it's really simple too. People are like, I don't even know where to look. Go on their website. Google them, look them up in the Wall Street Journal. Have they ended up in the front page? Is it good news or is it not so good news? I mean, there are ways for you to figure this out as you're looking.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, one of his other thoughts on matters as far as leadership is, are you playing a finite game or an infinite game? And, very much in line with what you said before, if people are looking at the situation from an infinite point of view, that it's not just one play and you're done, but where are you going to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? You approach everything completely differently than if you're just trying to win this very moment. And this is where self-development comes in. As we approach the latter point of our interview, I did want to touch on you going for your doctorate of business administration.
Wild.
You were already doing wonderfully, but even you thought, what's one more degree? I mean, that's a very impressive feat. Tell me about that. I want people
to call me doctor. Okay. I want them to call me doctor. No, I'm joking. But that doesn't hurt. I mean, I just try to use it as much as I can. I just really love to learn. And that's why I still geek out. And my kids look at me like, you're going back to school when I decided to. And I'm like, yeah, why not? You'll understand when you get older. You'll get it. My brain needed food. I wanted to really challenge myself. And the thing that I didn't like about the doctoral degree is they call it a terminal degree because that you can't get any higher than that. So it's a terminal degree. And I thought, oh, that doesn't sound good. But it really challenged me to think differently. It challenged me to look at things differently. It gave me permission. It gave me permission to call myself an expert.
Okay.
It gave me permission to not have all the answers because I felt before going to the doctoral program that I needed to have all the answers because that's the way that we were raised. It was binary, either true or false. You know it or you don't know it. And if you're in a certain level, you need to have all the answers. And one of the most liberating moments in the program was when one of my favorite professors, Dr. George Maraca, said, it depends. It depends. And I thought, oh my God, he's not telling me yes or no. It depends. Of course, it depends. Depends on so much. So that was one of my key takeaways. Like, I don't need to have all the answers, but we could figure it out together because it depends. And I just felt that it was right up the alley of what I wanted. I wanted to learn more about social science. I wanted to learn more about humans. I want to take it to the next level. And that program gave me that. It's a doctoral in business administration. So we talked about everything. We talked about marketing. We talked about finances. And it's all experimentational based, right? The way that you get the data is by interacting with humans, by doing studies.
Is that what keeps you interested in the people field? You know, the fact that you're dealing with people in so many different ways. I mean, because they're intertwined.
They're so unpredictable. Humans are
Yes.
unpredictable. You think you've seen it all, you've never seen it all. I'm surprised every day. So yeah, it helps me understand more. It helps me look at things differently. And it helped me tremendously in my career because you're able to frame things a certain way because you walk out of that program smarter. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It was long hours, a lot of reading, and the dissertation route, that was rough. I mean, it was one full year, and my dissertation was a qualitative one, which I thought, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought, oh, only 1% of the dissertations are qualitative. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to do. And then I realized as I'm doing it, why it's only 1%, because it's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it was just so rewarding. And I learned so much, and I'm still using the data and the findings today in my day-to-day in forums like this. I mean, you walk out of there being a true expert. You are the master of your domain, but it's because you earned it because of everything that you went through to get here. So I think that's how it helped me. And yeah, would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Especially with the amazing people that I met in the program, which are still very close friends today. I mean, it was just amazing. Amazing.
Do you have anything to plug? I know that you deal with in a speaking, what is it called? HISPA, in which you're talking to students.
Yeah. One of the things that I love to do is give back. There's give back to my school, give back to my community. And HISPA was put together by this brilliant woman who figured out that dropout rates in the Hispanic community happen in middle school entering high school. And how neat would it be if these students would go and talk to them about how you've made it? And I thought, hey, I'll do it. So I went to my high school, my alma mater, and I did the first one. And then I thought, I'm in a room with 30, 45 students. If I just have one pay attention to what I'm saying, and that one understands that they too can go to college, they too can work, they too can have these amazing jobs, then my job here is done. And it was so gratifying that my daughter came with me the year after, and we did a co-presentation about how it's like when you make it, that anybody can do it if you put in the hard work and the determination. And then she came up with how she went away to school and how she thought it was daunting and how rewarding it was for her and how that shaped her. So it was like a tag team and it was so great. But yeah, it's HISPA, HISPA, and they do great things for the community. Still grassroots, still getting started, but there we are.
Well, for a reluctant hero, you sure are making a lot of changes, both at Visa and in the community. And I know that all our viewers are so happy to have you in our presence. Thank you for taking the time, Dr. Maribel Diz.
Thank you.
Now that I can call you Dr. Maribel Diz, what are your plans for the future? I mean, what's going on for the next year for you before we let you go? We need to know. We need to know.
I have so much to do. I'm cooking some things. Some things are in the works. Still in the leadership space, I feel that there's a lot that I can contribute there still. And, one thing leads to another. Now it's leading with empathy. What's next? I don't know yet, but I'm cooking. I want to start a podcast with my daughter. And we already have a name. It's called Jen and Tonic. And we're going to talk about generations. We're going to talk, maybe we'll even do a little drink at the end, a little recipe, but we just want to make it fun and light. And I love spending time with her and her views, and my son too, but she's in the workforce. So I feel that I have a little bit more in common with her right now where she is in her career. And I'll get there with my boy. He's still in college, getting his degree. But I just love spending time with them. So that's also in the works. I'm cooking there. And I don't know. Someday I'll be famous, Alex. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, this is what keeps you into the people field. It's what makes when you get tapped on the shoulder feel worthwhile. Even if you don't feel you're ready for it, you go, head first and you make a success out of it. Dr. Diz, thank you so much. To everybody, thank you for being viewers. We cannot have done it without you. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of the year. We'll be back at the beginning of February. And for now, I wish you all the very best. And as always, keep your fingers on the pulse. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.